All right. Can you all see the La Semana on the screen? Yes. Okay, awesome. All right. So last week during the scavenger hunt, I told you that I would be sending out at least one announcement every week, probably a lot more than that. But the La Semana for week 2 was posted, I think, over the weekend. And so just want to remind us of a few things, okay? This is really important for you to read, probably as we get into the second half of class, like the second 4 weeks of class, I'm probably going to stop reading these announcements, but I just want to make sure that we kind of get into the habit of making sure we look at them. So first up on the list this week, add drop. Today, June 14th, is the last day to drop this class. So if you are thinking that 5 units over summer seems a little bit too much, or 5 units and a full-time job and maybe another job or other responsibilities feels like too much, today is your last day to withdraw. Drop the class and you will still get a full refund, which for a 5-unit class is actually pretty substantial. If you decide to stay, but things are not going well, you have another point of where you can, go and change your mind, and that would be, on July 19th. All right, so on July 19th is July 19th or July 9th, sorry. July 9th is going to be the last day that you can withdraw from the course, okay? So keep those dates in mind. They are important. They have different impacts on your transcript, and that would be something that would be important to talk to your particular counselor about should you find yourself in that situation. All right, so week 1 assignments. I'm not going to read through all of this, but if you're curious about common mistakes or, how folks did overall, here's a quick summary of that. I do want to highlight a couple things here. One is that I am going to be asking you to be using methods we learned in class. So if you are showing methods that are not learned from class, those may not be accepted. And particularly with exam 1 coming up, I want to make sure that we are practicing the methods we use in class. And the other thing that I found was that a lot of folks were missing some of these assignments. And so at the end of week 1, looking at where everyone stands in terms of grades, folks who did all the assignments have an A. Folks who missed a few assignments have anywhere between a B and an F, depending on what kind of assignments they missed, okay? That does not tell me anything about what you know about calculus. It tells me that you didn't turn in the assignments, okay? So I think for all parties involved, right? I know that you're not trying to be in summer school to not pass. That seems like then you probably would have just not taken it in the first place, right? So I know that you're here because you want to be here. You have some goals, right? They might be that this is the first time you're taking it. You're trying to get ahead for your prereqs, for your fall semester classes. Or maybe you've taken this class before and it didn't go so well. And now you're here to show yourself and, all the other folks who are saying, you can't do this. You're trying to show them that you can do this. And so with that being said, I think it is really important to make sure you are keeping up with the assignments. There are assignments pretty much every day. They're not necessarily, some of them are longer, some of them are shorter, but there is some sort of touch point with calculus every day. Okay, so if it gets really close to 11:59 on a day and you're like, I don't think I turned in anything today, I would go check Canvas because you're probably missing an assignment, okay? So you can read these over, but I do want to point out 2 things. So it looks like there are quite a few folks in the class who are typing their assignments, which is totally fine by me, okay? I think everyone has found a different way to adapt to the online learning environment, meaning that I can't just print out things for you to write on, right? That is sort of a thing that we cannot do right now. However, you have 2 options if you're looking to type. If you are looking to type your homework, there is an equation editor in Google Doc, and that's primarily what I use when I'm typing the worksheets and things like that. So it does everything that we need it to do. There's not a big learning curve. It's just kind of you click around and you want a fraction, you click the fraction symbol, that kind of thing. So I think if you were like, oh, I would like to actually try and type something, or maybe I didn't know how to make things into fractions, you can go to the equation editor, okay? Now I know that the Google Doc link for all the quizzes is set so that you can't edit it, because then you would be changing my copy, but you can save a copy and then you can make changes to that yourself. And that might be a way that if you're looking to type things, I think is the easiest way to kind of move into that realm, okay? One last note, if you are typing them, I still expect to see the same amount of work that you would show if you were handwriting it. So it's not a, I typed it so I don't have to show work situation, okay? The other thing that I just want to throw out there, I think this is sort of a big ask, a big learning curve during summer school. However, it seems like some folks might have some coding experience, and therefore it might not be as big of a stretch for you as it was for me learning how to use LaTeX. But LaTeX is another alternative system to sort of formatting notes and such. You can pretty much make your work look like it was typed right out of a textbook kind of situation. But there is a fairly big learning curve. But I did post a template which sort of gets folks started a little bit. And a suggestion to go to overleaf.com. This is a free tool, so you don't have to pay for anything, but it's a free way. You upload the template and then you can kind of see what the code does for each thing. You're welcome to play around with it. If there are enough folks who are interested, I'm happy to host a get to know LaTeX session where we can kind of figure out what it might look like if we want to use LaTeX to type any of our assignments, okay? This is 100% optional. I know that calculus is hard enough as it is. We are in summer school. We're going twice as fast as a regular semester. You should feel no obligation to do LaTeX. However, if you are interested, that is something that I can help you with, okay? All right, now the probably more important announcements for the upcoming weeks. So week 2, this week, we're gonna finish limits day 4. We're gonna begin chapter 3, and my hope is that we're gonna finish 3.1, 3.2, and half of 3.3, okay? Fractions and exponents is, so all of the assignments that are due for this week are listed right here for you. Okay, so if you're ever not sure, you're like, I don't know if we had an assignment due or not, come back, check La Semana. It is a one-stop shop for you, in addition to the task list that Canvas already makes for you, okay? So Monday, today, there's a fractions and exponents review that is on Canvas. Tuesday, there's a discussion. Wednesdays, there's a quiz. Thursday, there's an exam. Friday, there's a second quiz. There's also a discussion on Friday, okay? Please make sure that you work through all the assignments. If you have any questions, ask me sooner rather than later. I definitely saw quite a few folks on some of the quiz questions that were maybe a little trickier that just left things totally blank. Please email me, please send me a message on Discord. I would love to help you understand things instead of waiting until a key comes out to try and figure things out. Again, that kind of goes with the whole summer school experience, that the more we can stay on top of things, I think the less stressful and already stressful situation is, okay? Friendly reminders here that if you still have not joined the Discord server, there's a link right here. If you still have not joined the Desmos class, there is a link right there, okay? So those are the announcements for the week that I just wanted to make sure folks take a look at. And there's one more thing I wanted to show you, which is if you go back to the home page, another way that you can, there's 2 more ways you can help keep track of assignments. One is you'll see this fabulous to-do list right over here in the right-hand corner, okay? I don't know that this comes up in the app, but if you are on a computer, then this should come up. And as soon as you're done with something, you click the X, it goes away. Okay, so every time you sign on to Canvas, there's a list of all the assignments right here for you and the deadlines, all right? If you don't like that, the last alternative is if you click on course schedule. Okay, so if you click on course schedule, This is a list of not only what things are due when, all right, that's all the highlighted things, all right? So fractions and exponents review, exam one concept and discussion, blah, blah, blah. All of those assignments are here color coded, but you can also see what content we're gonna be covering on any given day, okay? So this is another way that you can keep track of where we are in the curriculum, when exams are coming up. You can even take a look at it sort of unit by unit, okay? Are there any questions so far about the announcements? Yes, so you can also go to the calendar. I have to admit that I don't use the calendar a ton, but there is, if you go to the calendar, should have all of the due dates on there, right? So thank you for sharing that, Luca. I think we all find different ways in which Canvas can work for us. And Johanna, I'm not sure what you mean by the Desmos activity, but that's something that if you want to maybe email me a specific question, I'm happy to help you out with, okay? There is actually one last thing that I want us to take a look at, and that is, okay. So when you go to the homepage, you have the logistics. This is how you get into your Zoom room. But in unit 1, you'll find this is all of the notes that we'll have for unit 1. And if you're like, well, how am I supposed to know what to study for exam 1? If you click on the exam 1 topic list, all right, it should bring you to a list that has all of the topics and point values on the exam, okay? So you can use this to sort of guide your studying and think about what you might want to focus more on, where you feel like your strengths are and where you don't have to study as much, but this is another resource for you to prepare for the exam. All right. Let's go ahead and say one more thing about the exam, and that is extra credit, okay? So extra credit for exam 1 will be as follows, all right? I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, but I'm gonna go ahead and type that into the chat. So extra credit for exam 1 looks like this. Create a reference sheet no more than one side of a 8.5 by 11. All right, so you're going to create a reference sheet, no more than one side of a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And on this reference sheet, things can, you can write down things like formulas, examples, sentence summaries, etc. Okay. This reference sheet is meant to be two things. One, extra credit, but two, also to think about as you're studying for the exam, a way to sort of synthesize everything that you think is going to be on that exam, okay? While this is optional, okay, this is 100% optional, you do not need to make a reference sheet. I do want to remind us that the exam 1 is timed, all right? Meaning that it is open notes and materials from this class. So it's not open internet. I just want to be really clear about that, okay? If you interpret open notes and materials as open internet, you're going to be really mad about your grade. And some of your classmates might be really mad about the changes in exam policies that we're going to have. Okay, so don't be that person. But it is open notes. So all of the notes, all of the lecture videos associated with this class that we post to Canvas, all of that is available to you during the exam. Okay. However, since exam 1 is timed, you have a very limited amount of time in order to complete everything, okay? So one way in which I think you can sort of connect those dots a little bit better for yourself is to create a reference sheet and think about, okay, if I see this example, I'm going to go to limits day 1. If I see this example, I'm going to go to limits day 4. If I see this example, I'm going to go to 3.1. Okay, so take the time as you study. It's a kind of different studying than maybe before we were remote, okay? But take the time to study, to think about where can I find these things and can I do them in the time that is allowed. All right. So let me pause here for a moment and see if there are any other questions that are coming up for folks. Great questions. All right. So keep asking those questions. I'm going to start answering them from the top. The first one is, what if I am using an iPad, one page, or question mark? Okay, if you are using a tablet, I would just ask you to keep it to like whatever one page is on a tablet. I would encourage you not to sort of like write something and then because you have a tablet, shrink it down and then add some more stuff, right? So be fair to yourself and to other folks, one page-ish on your iPad. If you're using an app like Notability, I think you can see sort of the outline for one page, if that makes sense, okay? Would we submit it as the second question is, would we submit it as a PDF in the test too? Yes. Okay. So when you get to the exam on Thursday, there's going to be 2 questions on the exam. Okay. So the first question, number 1, will be optional, and it will be to upload your reference sheet. Okay. So if you create a reference sheet, my suggestion is to make your reference sheet PDF before the exam starts. Okay. So if you're going to make a reference sheet, turn it into a PDF before the exam starts. That way you log on, you turn on, you open the exam, and as soon as you open the exam, you upload that and you move on to question 2. Okay, so if we want to save a little bit of time, do not wait until the actual exam to take a PDF of your reference sheet. Okay. Question number 2 is going to be, this is the exam PDF. Okay, so in question number 2, once you get to that, you're going to go ahead and click the link for the exam file. All right, so it'll be kind of like the quiz, right? You click the link, it goes to the exam, and then however you do the exam, okay, so or however you do the quizzes, if you normally print out the quizzes and you're gonna print out your exam, then that's fine. If you do not have access to a printer and you're just gonna be writing on a piece of paper, that is absolutely fine, okay? If you normally do it on a tablet, you can download that PDF, you can upload it to your tablet, work on there, and then send it back when you're done, okay? So the reason why we have the quizzes the way we do is because the format technology-wise is very similar to an exam. Okay, so essentially every quiz is practicing not just the content, but how you actually take an exam, all right? Let me see what other questions I missed. So we will have 2 hours and 25 minutes for the exam. Yes, so for exam 1, okay, it will open at 7 a.m. So when you log on to Canvas at 7 a.m., the exam should be open. If you log on at like 6:55 a.m., you should not be able to access the exam yet. Okay, so the exam will open at 7 a.m. This is exam 1, so exam 1 will close at 10 a.m. All right, so we'll give a little buffer on the back end in case, I think the first exam with a new instructor is always challenging. And I think that the first exam, maybe of summer school, just that added pressure, I just want to give us a little bit of a buffer time there. Okay. But what that means for you is that files must be uploaded by 10 a.m. If they're not uploaded and it closes on you, All right, so like, let's not cut it too close. Like maybe like 9:58 is the time that you want to stop and make sure you upload everything, okay? How much time? Okay, so that should answer the time question better. Better question. How long should we be taking on each question? Oh, how many questions on the exam? My answer to that is always not a student favorite. There are always enough questions on the exam. Okay, there are enough questions on the exam. And so how long should you take? You can see the whole exam at once. I would suggest thinking about it as I wouldn't necessarily work in order. I would kind of look at what your strengths are. What do you feel good about after you've studied? Like, okay, I know how to find limits from a graph. I'm going to do that question first. Or I know that we just did the squeeze theorem and I actually feel really good about that. So I'm going to find the squeeze theorem question and I'm going to work on that one first. Okay. But it is very much a play to your strengths situation and making sure that you leave yourself enough time to look at all the different pieces. Okay. I did get some really good questions about quiz 2 last week. Some of those questions in particular were like, well, how do I know what strategy to use? Because we learned so many different limits ones. So if quiz 2 and the decision making took you a really long time, I would really encourage you to practice the decision making more so that when you see a question, you can be like, okay, I know I should use this strategy, or okay, I know I should use that strategy. Okay, so that would be my biggest piece of advice, is make sure you know how you know which strategy to use. Okay. I think I have gotten to all the questions. Let me see if there's any that I've missed. Okay, I see one. Do I have an example about how the reference sheet should look? I don't have an example right now. I can maybe send some out of students from past courses. So maybe not this particular class, sorry, maybe not this particular class, but just like an example of different students' reference sheets. So some students have organized it by section, like they'll do like limits day 1, limits day 2, limits day 3, limits day 4, and then they'll sort of write under each section. And some people like to kind of do it by topic. And so it's really up to you how you choose to organize it. But let me see if I can find some good examples from previous students about that. Okay. Yes, so the extra credit, the reference sheet is worth up to 5 points. Okay, so there is a little bit of a quality thing here. If all you do is screenshot photos of formulas from the notes and squeeze them onto one page, you will probably get 0 points for that. Okay, so I do like, the point of the reference sheet is not to copy and paste. Like the point of the reference sheet is to synthesize and study so that you're prepared. Okay, so I will tell you that I do expect that reference sheet to be handwritten, meaning that even if there's a formula, you're like, yes, this is the formula I want, like I want you to write it on your paper or on your tablet. Okay, I'm a big proponent of like, the more you write, that muscle memory builds, the stickier that formula is. So it's not a like me trying to be like, oh, I want you to take more time to do things. I actually think there's a benefit to writing something in a way that screenshotting doesn't make things stickier in your brain. Okay. All right. So one last thing that I want to say, that is about grading overall in this class. So this summer, we will have 1,000 points in the entire course. Okay, 1,000 points in the entire course. And so I know sometimes we feel like worried about, exams. Oh, it's an exam, like it counts more, like, and then we sort of stress ourselves out about like, well, what if I can't do these things? I know I studied, but I always do bad on tests, or whatever, mindset we kind of fall into. But one thing I want to sort of remind us of is that when we're thinking about points, okay, an exam is 100 points. Okay, so that is a lot, but each quiz is worth 20 points, right? And so if I think about, or if I have a discussion, might be 10 to 15 points. So, let's say if I'm thinking about exams and I don't feel like I'm super great at exams, if you are doing every assignment, you're doing every quiz, you're doing every discussion, you're doing every Desmos, you're actually setting yourself up to be in a really good place point wise. Okay. And in some aspects, if you do all those other assignments, not only are you more prepared content wise, but you're really setting yourself up to be in that A or B range grade wise, even if you kind of, don't do so well on one particular exam. Okay. So the way the grades are structured, every point is equal. Every assignment might just have different point values, if that makes sense. Okay. But we should have a good amount of points not exam based, so that, like, in theory, even if you are the world's worst exam taker, you like get a 0 in every exam, like you should still be able to find yourself, not terribly far from that passing point. Okay, so I do want to make sure that we are aware of that. Okay, some great questions. So 4.6, these are all sections from the textbook. So I would encourage you to go to the textbook. Okay, so those sections should be helpful in terms of what is this content. All right. So if you're not sure about a particular topic, go to the textbook and you'll be able to find that corresponding section. All right. Okay, I got one more question. Do you think that if we study the quizzes 1 through 3, that should put us in a good spot? Great question. So I think that if I were to think about preparing for an exam, I think that personally, I would probably start by redoing quiz questions. Okay, like I think that's not a bad place to start. And I mean redo, like don't even look at your old work, don't even look at the answer key, right? Even though it was last week, can you still do that question without looking back at your notes? And I think that's actually the best indicator. So if you can do questions without referring back to notes, you're probably in a great place. Okay. If you rely on your notes to get through the problems, then I would encourage you to make sure your reference sheet helps you make decisions quickly. Okay, and that goes back again to like, wait, what section is this from? What section is that question from? If you are like, I really need my notes to do these problems and we only have a certain amount of time to do the questions, I would encourage you to make sure that reference sheet is super, super good. Okay. After redoing questions, then I would maybe go back to notes, look over examples. There are some examples in the notes that we did not get to, and so those would be great places to say, okay, this is the kind of flavor of question she likes to ask. Let's try a couple of these examples. And then finally, maybe looking at outside resources, which could include your textbook, which could include internet resources, etc. Okay, so I would sort of start with the quizzes, move sort of out to the notes and the discussions, and then out a little bit further to resources not in this class. Okay. I did actually see a great question before, which is, okay, someone had asked way earlier on about they were using the textbook and noticed there were a few things that we didn't go through. So I would say this as far as the studying goes, the topic list should guide your studying. Okay. The topics in particular and how they relate to flavors of questions we've seen in class. If you see a similar flavored question in the textbook, that's probably a good thing to go over. If you see something that seems very different in flavor, then that might not be something that you need to focus on as much. Okay. Can you use the book? Yes, you can use the textbook as well. Okay, so the online textbook is for this class is okay as well. All right. All right. One last thing I want to say about exams, and then we'll move on to our content piece for today, is this. Don't be a jerk. All right, don't be a jerk who cheats on the exam. I am very skilled at finding folks who cheat on exams. It does not feel good on my end, and it does not feel good on your end either. Okay, I promise you that. So I don't want us to get into a situation. I think that I am so happy to help out. Like, you want to, hang out after class to answer some questions, totally there. You have questions on Discord, send me a question. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So many ways that I want to support you, but the one thing that I really do not tolerate is the cheating on an exam. Okay, so that is probably the number one way to make me really upset, is to cheat on the exam. And then it's really hard to come back from that, in the sense that you have a lot of trust to earn back. And that's hard. That's hard to do. Okay, so don't be that person. Let's just kind of get through this summer class and have a great experience with it. Okay. All right, so let me